Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, throughout Europe on Radio X, the Talkstar Radio Network, TalkStream Live, and many other affiliates and satellite providers. Now, if you'd like to check us out on the web, xzoneradiotv.com is all the social media sites. And if you'd like to send me an email, studio@xzoneradiotv.com. Well, tomorrow's the big day, November the 8th. It's going to be one of those, I think, late into the night elections. But before we get to doing that and talking to my special guest, our good friend, Richard DeRose, I'd like to welcome to the X-Zone Network and the X-Zone Radio Show, Where's My Credit Card.com. Now, are you tired of having disposable income? Well, Where's My Credit Card.com can help. Where's My Credit Card.com searches the internet for unique, cool, and outrageous gifts and products just for you. That's Where's My Credit Card.com. You'll just always want to buy one more thing with, you've got it, www.where'smycreditcard.com. I went to their website. It's filled with super stuff. So one more time, www.where'smycreditcard.com. Richard DeRose is our guest, and in 1998, Richard DeRose wrote Retail to Hell, Why We Need to Fear the Information Highway Superstores and Superpowers. He warned then that in a decade, the United States would suffer from economic collapse. No one really listened then. Hello, are you listening now? Joining me now is Richard DeRose. And Richard, you and I have been talking about this election now for a couple of months, and tomorrow is D-Day, the election day in the United States of America. And there's been a lot of crazy things going on. We've had Director Comey change his mind and change it back, change his mind, change it back. We've got Clintons that are, in my opinion, abusing the system. I don't think President Obama should be spending $200,000 an hour flying all over the United States to make sure that the fix is in for Hillary Clinton. You've got, let me see, Michelle Obama going all over the place, yapping. Tonight, a big thing in Philadelphia with Bruce Springsteen and, Bon Jovi. Come on. It seems like the fix is in, but you know what? For a fix that is in, the polls are very, very tight. What's your take on what's going on, Rich?
Well, I think it's the most interesting time in human history, and we're living through it, and it's a scary time, but you're right. I mean, the fix is there, but I really do believe that people are waking up for the first time in a long time. As you mentioned about the book Retail to Hell, people would listen to you a little bit, but they didn't really want to believe it. Now, all of a sudden, with WikiLeaks and Anonymous and Putin and from Russia all putting out information, and the Internet, of course, people are finally waking up and saying, hey, something's really wrong here. We've been screwed by this system.
You know what I can't understand, Rich, and maybe you can help me. Excuse me, I still have that summer cold. You've got Donald Trump, who's going all over the country. He's flipping his own bill for his airfare and everything else. And he's just pulling in thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people wherever he goes. And then you've got Hillary Clinton and her band of surrogates, the president, the vice president, the president's wife, Bill Clinton, the sex pervert. And the polls are still so tight. Is the light finally going on with the people that, hey, there's something wrong with Hillary Clinton and gang?
Yeah, I think so. But also I believe that if they're this close with the polls, and the polls are biased like the media, then probably he's 5 or 10 points ahead. Like the LA Times does a poll, about half and half. Or actually, I think it's a third, Republican, Democrat, and Independents. And they keep showing he's 5 points ahead. So that might be the most accurate poll that's out there. But the fact that she's still doing well is shocking because, she's just basically a criminal. And people still are looking the other way. Enough people are because they want the free handouts and the things that government keep giving them. And they're just looking completely like, she's just a saint. And it's unbelievable.
Hey, Rich, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our break. Exxon Nation, our good friend Richard DeRose is my special guest for this first hour tonight. Tomorrow is Election Day in the United States. And, I was watching CNN today, which we call the Clinton News Network, and they are so negative on Donald Trump. We're going to boycott CNN after this election. We're not even going to turn it on around here. Richard and I return on the X-Zone as we continue live from our broadcast center here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
Welcome back, everyone. Richard DeRose is our special guest, and Richard's website is www.brainwashedaryou.com. You know, people are saying, Rob, why are you covering the U.S. election? That's nothing to do with the paranormal. Well, I have to ask you this question. If this isn't the strangest, weirdest, unreal, superficial, supernatural thing that you have never seen in your life, come on. This is a conspiracy theory. This is the New World Order. This is cover-ups, and we cover all those here in the X-Zone. So that is why, X-Zone Nation, I am so mesmerized, so baffled, so... Oh, Richard, help me out here. What's another good verb to use when looking at the election?
Well, one thing you got to look at, if this election, goes the wrong way and Hillary gets in,
yeah,
you could have so much social unrest in the world. It's scary, and that affects Canada, affects everybody,
yeah.
South America, the Middle East.
It's
not simple.
You and I were talking during the commercial break about Alan West, a former military officer who was basically saying that, if Trump does not get in, there could be civil unrest.
Right, he's actually calling for it. So, and they say that they're, former Army generals, retired people, some that, out of the Army that, will join in with them. It's scary because it's Tea Party stuff, and Tea Party has gotten into key positions in our government. He's calling, for a certain number of senators and congressmen to stand with him. So we, like I say, this may be like another civil war in its own way. Hopefully, it never goes to the point where people are shooting
at
each other, but it's possible.
I agree, and violence would just, in my opinion, Rich, and you and I have talked about this many times over the years that I've had the pleasure of knowing you, is that people have talked about President Obama ready to sign an executive order instituting martial law. And if there was any civil disobedience, man, that would happen so fast, and the Second Amendment would go right out the door.
Exactly. And they can do that legally. It's part of protecting the government.
That's right.
But if enough people rose up, that's the whole thing about a democracy, which we really not a republic, but and you can influence policy by doing such a thing. Remember, what was it, Yeltsin in Russia? You know, stood on that tank, and it would have taken just one bullet to take him off.
That's
there
right.
Might have been some protests, but nobody shot him, and next thing you know, the Soviet Union collapses. So something like that could be going on, too. This is really a phenomenon that we've never seen before in this country.
I still can't get over the fact that Donald Trump flies on his own dime. He brings crowds of magnitudes that have never been seen before. And he doesn't get good press coverage. And yet,
It's because the press is owned by the establishment, so the crony capitalists that are fearful of Trump getting in power.
What's wrong with that? Because I think Donald Trump is showing the American public that it is we the people, not I the person, and that politics and democracy does work. You just cannot say no to the Washington insiders.
Well, that's a wake-up call, and that's what's happening is people are waking up to the point that, hey, I believe this. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to stand up. And people said for years if there was ever a leader that comes forward, then a lot of people would get behind him. And this is exactly what happens with George Washington and Robert E. Lee and others. It takes a certain person to stand up and say enough's enough. And he's done that. And he's saying it in pretty strong terms. He's talking about prosecuting some of these people, including Hillary Clinton. And people say, oh, that's never been done before. You can't do that. Well, why not? If they're committing crimes, then they need to be held responsible.
Let's take a few different topics one at a time. Director Comey, FBI. During the summertime, they did an investigation, and he went before Congress, and there was going to be no charges. What was it, 9-10 days ago? He sends a letter to Congress saying that based on the new information with Anthony Weiner and what's her name? Abedin?
Uma Abedin.
Yeah, that they were reopening the case. And then yesterday, 2 days before the election, he says, well, no, there's no charges. Nothing has changed since the summer.
Well, he's in a heck of a fix. The FBI agents are threatening a mutiny because they're so upset about what's going on. And there are three basic laws in the United States which Hillary is, broken in relation to the, confidentiality of the information that she's responsible for. And they've admitted that, she's had, stuff that she's passed on her computer that other people have gotten into, that was, confidential, and she just released it anyway. Put it on her computer where other people, including Anthony Weiner, could get it. And Comey even said that at least one of them was on her computer. Well, one is enough, but there's probably thousands on there. And I think Uma was trying to protect herself. She actually filed it under the file life insurance.
Huh.
Like if anything happens to me. What's scary about this, though, is that she could have used that because, she's from the Muslim Brotherhood type situation. Her parents believe in Sharia law, and she worked with them under that. To get that close, and everyone kept saying, Hillary's going to make her Secretary of State. Can you believe that? And then she's got this information she can blackmail Hillary with.
I do believe it, yeah.
It's scary. It is scary.
And
can get that corrupt.
How is it that the FBI, now I've got a lot of respect for law enforcement, having been an ex-cop myself, and that was many years ago when we didn't wear bulletproof vests and all the rest of the rigmarole that the cops were today. It took them, I don't know how many months to go through 55,000 emails. And it took them 9 days to go through 650,000 emails. Something's wrong somewhere.
It is. And what it is the politics involved. Most of the media was criticizing Comey for what he had done, this close to the election and all that kind of stuff, because it did affect her. And then what happened was he just caved in, to the pressure, because he can't prove it. He's got probably proof, but, who's going to ever prosecute? A law, just because you break a law and commit, you could kill your wife and it'd still be murder, but yet, the DA decides you don't have enough evidence to convict, and he wants a conviction, so he doesn't even try you. He got away with the,
murder.
Human crime of murder, but it doesn't mean you didn't commit murder. And that's exactly what's going on here. She's guilty, 100% guilty, and just because the law enforcement in this country is so weak and so politically,
but wait a sec here, Rich. I respect you. You know that. I consider you a friend, but I don't think it's law enforcement that's weak in the States. From what I see, it's the political aspect and the political monitoring, the thumb on law enforcement, that is making law enforcement second-guess themselves and appearing to be weak.
Well, that's true, yeah, the Justice Department.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's appointed and everybody's paid.
Yep.
You know, they could go after Comey in different ways. One of the problems with being in law enforcement or even, you know, working for a Justice Department is you're making everyday decisions, and every one of them could get you potentially in trouble.
Yeah.
Not just fired, but you could go to jail for it because you're making those important decisions. And if somebody really wants to get you, it's easy to do that.
Then how did Loretta Lynch get away with meeting Bill Clinton in her plane on a tarmac, and then all of a sudden everything changes? The FBI investigation is closed. Hillary Clinton is given a kiss on the cheek.
Well, that's because, you know, people don't have enough information. I think I mentioned this before. The average human has what's called normalcy bias built into their brain, and that means what you grow up with and this relate to. The brain, you know, tries to protect you like ignorance is bliss, you know.
Yeah.
So if you hear this stuff, then after a short while it fades out, just like Hillary's popularity is coming back a little bit after the Comey incident with the FBI, because that's been a couple of weeks and it's faded down in their brain. It doesn't mean as much. And that's why people can bring out the most god-awful stuff about somebody, and 2 weeks later they're back where they were. It's normalcy bias. They cannot remember and do not want to remember, you know, what they heard. So unless you keep throwing it at them over and over and over again, which our press is not doing that.
But Trump is. Trump is. He hasn't changed his stance that crooked Hillary. He keeps on saying that. He keeps on talking about the emails. He keeps on talking about her server at home. He keeps on reminding the people. And she's saying, well, we've got to get beyond this. Well, no, we don't. Don't you guys have to solve this first? And what happens to the great United States of America that I love, even though I'm not an American, I love the Americans. I love the United States. I love going there. What happens to them? God forbid if Hillary does win, and then all of a sudden
we'll be fighting for the next 4 years just dealing with her crimes.
But what happens?
We have to move past that.
But what happens if something else turns up in an investigation where she is charged?
Well, they're talking about Congress could charge her. And then if, you know, Republicans still stay in office, it may very well happen, and then you're just fighting like an impeachment thing.
Well, didn't Bill Clinton, her husband, get impeached by Congress?
Right, he did.
And he stayed there.
Well, he stayed there because he ran out of time, basically, and then they kind of more or less released it. But the point was that he actually became a very weak individual, and actually Newt Gingrich, you know, was running Congress in a sense, and they got a lot of laws passed because, you know, so he didn't do a good job as a Democrat. He just, you know, was there he rubber stamped what, you know, Congress wanted. So we got a lot done, and the you know, budget looked like it's being balanced. There's a lot of technological stuff going on at that time. You know, it was close to the 1999, 2000. You know, of course there was a collapse too, but you know, people were selling internet stocks and stuff like that and making killings, so they were paying high taxes. And that brought in a lot of revenue for the government. It looked like we were getting along pretty good until George Bush got there. But that was another story. But the point is that Bill Clinton himself didn't do anything. I mean, he was a terrible president, embarrassment to the country with Monica Lewinsky and other stuff he was doing. And yet, you know, people still want to play that narrative that he was very successful as a president. He was a terrible president.
But when you look at the past of Hillary Clinton and what she has done, you know, going backwards when she, you know, basically got this rapist off and other things. She was fired as an assistant prosecutor, for God's sake. And the list goes on and on and on. And what is it that makes anyone want to vote for her?
Well, she's got to be crazy to want to put herself in this mix. And a lot of the people surrounding with her are actually under investigation themselves. So, you know, they kind of, in a way, hate her. And Podesta's, her campaign manager's emails indicate that one of them was that she even smells bad. I mean, like, come on. But politics makes strange bedfellows, and people wanting to think that they can get her elected, which not realizing they picked probably the worst candidate they could find. But since she was Secretary of State and, you know, was First Lady and this, that, and the other, they just assumed it was a natural because, you know, Americans are stupid and they'll just go ahead and vote for her. But then Donald Trump comes along and opens everything up and starts talking about, like you're talking about, crooked Hillary, and he says it over and over again. That's what people have to hear. And it becomes, sort of like, oh, maybe she is crooked.
Have you noticed nothing about Black Lives Matter anymore? Have you noticed that?
Right. It's died down a good bit.
Yeah, it has. And I'm still waiting for the final shoe to drop, either later on tonight or early tomorrow morning, just as the polls open. I don't think...
Well, I'll tell you what I think was going to be the case. Years ago, Bill Clinton...
Rich, you and I are going to take a commercial break because I don't want to disrupt you, my friend. Exonation, Richard DeRose is my special guest. And if you'd like to find out more about Richard, visit his website, brainwashedaryou.com. And we're talking about tomorrow, November the 8th, 2016, Election Day in the United States of America. Is it going to be a Republican government, or is it going to be a Democrat government, or is it going to be civil unrest and martial law? We'll talk more on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And don't forget to check out where'smycreditcard.com just in time for Christmas. That's www.where'smycreditcard.com. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm talking to my good friend Richard DeRose. He is the author of Brainwashed Are You? And he's also the author of Why Retail to Hell. His website is www.brainwashedareyou.com. And tomorrow is Election Day in the United States of America. Is it going to be a Democratic government led by... Well, do I have to say her name, Craig? All right, Crooked Hillary. Or is it going to be a Republican government led by Donald Trump? Or is something going to happen that is going to cause an executive order to be signed between the time the election is over to the time of the swearing in of the new president, where President Obama is going to sign an executive order, martial law is going to be installed, the Second Amendment is going to be taken away, and he's going to remain as president? Only in America. Rich, you and I were talking during the break about something rather disturbing, and share it with our listeners.
Well, what happened years ago was Bill Clinton was hanging out with Epstein down in Palm Beach County, and he had a prostitution ring going, and Clinton has been a really close friend of his for years. But anyway, he had sex with a 13-year-old prostitute that had run away.
Oh, hold on. Who did? Who did? Clinton or Epstein?
Bill Clinton did.
Oh, he did,
Bill Clinton did.
Huh. Mm-hmm. The dirty old man.
So all this came out, and this, that, and the other, and Epstein was tried, and he got 18 months instead of 21 years or so. And then he moved and started doing the same thing in an island off, outside
Mm-hmm.
the jurisdiction of the United States. And Clinton has been there many times. In fact, I saw something yesterday that they've actually seen where Hillary Clinton has gone there 6 times, by airfare. So what happened, though, was this case came up because of who Clinton was. They never prosecuted him for it. But during this election cycle, when Trump qualified, all of a sudden this lady, who's now an adult, files a lawsuit saying back in 1995, about the same time period that Bill Clinton had sex with this 13-year-old, which, is illegal. She can't give consent because she's underage. Mm-hmm. So in that case, now all of a sudden it's Donald Trump, and that's what some people have used against him. Well, she filed it first in L.A. and then dropped it, and then later, a few months later, she filed it in New York. Well, Saturday she withdrew her lawsuit, or Friday. And, it came to the point where I think she got frightened by what Donald Trump had said, that he's going to actually prosecute and sue these people that have made these false claims against him, because it's really a serious crime to try to influence an election. And she can't prove her charges anyway. But it was listed under, her name was Jane Doe 1, and then she supposedly had 2 witnesses, Jane Doe 2 and Jane Doe 3. But there again, it's been so many years later, but it was just out there, and I think it's what Hillary was going to throw at Donald Trump at the last minute. But since she pulled out her lawsuit and dropped it, then all of a sudden, she didn't have that fodder to throw it at Trump at the last minute, which he couldn't defend himself.
It's been interesting to watch the different internet feeds, especially Facebook. Some of the stuff on there has just been, it's just been ridiculous. And I'd like to remind all the listeners out there that just because you see it on Facebook does not mean it is true. You may see different news organizations, but we've learned that many of these websites that are claiming to be news organizations are not. They're smear campaigns that are happening, not only for Donald Trump, not only for Hillary Clinton, but the Tea Party as well. Yesterday when we look what happened in Leesburg, Virginia, for example, a 2.5-mile long line for a Donald Trump midnight rally. Man, when you hear the polls are so close, something doesn't make sense to me, Rich.
It doesn't. That's what I've said earlier. That, it's like they want to build this image of this person, who's this bad guy and this, that, and the other, and the people can't support him. But the facts are that people, are really falling in love with the guy. It's like he's this great leader that we hadn't seen since George Washington. And so it's amazing, really. And the polls can't be that close. But I know for a fact that Americans are stupid in many ways. They don't look at the issues. It's a handout, what's good for me. They're afraid Donald Trump might cut them off of their social benefits. But they'll be cut off anyway because the system's going to go broke. There's nowhere to borrow the money.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the end of the road here, and it's just going to get really bad for everybody if something isn't done. So Donald Trump's the only one giving us hope that maybe he can turn this economy around and start generating tax dollars and also, disposable income and discretionary income for individuals. Because right now, almost all of us are taxed to the end. We can't stand much more.
Listen, Rich, we just got something from the Donald Trump camp. They asked us if we could play it. So, Craig, do you want to cue it? Let me know. It is? Okay, here we go.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Wow, that was just sent in to us, Rick.
Movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment.
Wow, pretty heavy.
I didn't get to hear it. It went blank on me.
Oh, it did? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. Yeah, no problem.
It was very strong. It was very... very down to earth. It was a plea. And once again, there you go. Now, if Hillary Clinton's group was to send us a message or a clip to play, in all fairness, I would play it. This is not CNN. We actually do care about our listeners. We actually do care about the people who tune into us around the world. And yes, we are biased when it comes to Donald Trump because I believe that he is for the people, by the people. And the people are showing that they want him in power. And he's not costing the American public $200,000 an hour when he's flying around in his plane going from one place to another. He doesn't have the President of the United States on his side. He doesn't have the Vice President of the United States on his side.
You know, the hypocrisy of Michelle Obama, for example, she's really done little or nothing for anybody. She's been one of the worst, first ladies there is, and she's flown around with sort of $400 or $500 million in vacation time, and that could have gone into helping poor, black people out. So she doesn't do anything for a race, but she's a hypocrite. She won't hold her hand up over her heart, when they do the national anthem and stuff like that. So it goes to show you where these folks are coming from. But she's such a hypocrite when she was criticizing Donald Trump over morality issues because Beyonce and some of the things that she promotes is certainly not good for children.
Well, just like Miley Cyrus,
first-class hypocrite.
I just heard today that the Trump Foundation paid for. I'm sorry, not the Trump Foundation. I'm sorry. The Clinton Foundation paid for Chelsea's wedding.
That's right.
Now, the Clinton Foundation was really fast to get on Trump and jump on him for a 6-foot portrait that he bought. I'm sure that the 6-foot portrait, which what was it, Craig? $6,000, pales in comparison to what the Clinton Foundation paid for Chelsea's wedding. Why are there two standards here? Clintons and Trumps used to be friends. What happened?
Well, I think he woke up. He actually said this to a group of religious leaders, that he realized that he was never going to get to heaven if he didn't, straighten his act up, and by saving America, that he thought God would forgive him for all the things he had done. Those weren't the exact words he said, but that was his sentiment. And I've seen that many times with people that, he's 70 years old, and he knows he's not going to live forever. And I think that's really what motivates him. And so, you can trust him in that way because he does care about his spiritual life. He's had everything he could possibly have on this earth.
Right.
So it does make sense that he would, put himself out like this. Of course, he is putting his family at risk, too, and his fortune. But, people do that sort of thing. And I think he's always felt like he's had that power, and he's proven that he has that power to actually make that much of a difference.
Something else that just came.
I know could do this.
Something else that just came up from one of the news feeds is that Ben Stein on Hillary's economic knowledge, she doesn't know her ass from her elbow.
Well, that's another problem. Why would you want to put her in office when she's just been an activist and a lawyer? I mean, you don't trust lawyers anyway. So, being an activist is what Barack Obama was. So she doesn't understand things. He didn't understand things, how they work. Yeah, maybe Trump's not a actual politician, but we don't need a politician right now.
That's
we need
right.
somebody that can solve problems and get things fixed. And if half the people that work for the government want to leave, so be it. We don't need them anyway. They're just dead weight.
This is just in from one of our listeners. If Trump loses, Rob, illegals will pour into our country. Our borders will be unsecured. China will put us further in debt. ISIS will not be destroyed and will thrive. The Constitution will no longer exist. Our economy will never, ever recover. Radical Muslims, Islam, will take control and destroy our very way of life. Our vets will die shamelessly. No matter where you or your family go, you won't be safe. America will no longer exist. Please, please vote for Donald Trump.
Wow. Sentiments, exactly. But like I mentioned earlier, Uma, Hillary's number one, confident aide, the one that's married to Anthony Weiner, who's a pervert himself. She could be the Secretary of State under Clinton. And gosh, I mean, we're doomed, man. It's gotten to the point where you just have to do something.
Well, Hillary is so offended by Donald Trump's language, and yet Jay-Z drops N-bombs, the F-bomb, and it's okay because it's one of her homies. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's true, and it's sad, but it also shows you who she really is.
Yeah,
she's not that nice, sweet person that cares about children. She wouldn't, and we mentioned this last time I was on, for the final minutes before a baby can, be born, that you could actually kill that child inside the mother's womb. That's wrong. And she's really for kids, then she wouldn't even think like that.
Yeah. And then you have Donna Brazil and the CNN, which somebody is now calling the cheating news network, and what happened there. And this is another example of how CNN has tried to manipulate the election. This hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, and author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
Welcome back, everyone. Richard DeRose is my guest this hour, www.brainwashedareyou.com. Rich, what are you going to be doing tomorrow night? Are you going to be glued to your TV set?
Perhaps, probably will be. It's one of those situations that, I'm just got my fingers crossed and hope everything goes the way I want it to.
What are you going to do if Miss Clinton gets in? I mean, what can
Well, I'm going to
we
be
do?
disappointed, but like I said earlier, I think this is just the beginning
Yeah.
of a new day, and things positive might come out of it in the long run.
What do you think Donald Trump would do if he is not elected? Do you think that he'll accept the results, or will he challenge it?
I think he'll challenge it because there's enough information out there indicating that the polls are rigged. I've read that it may not be true, that he's filed a lawsuit in one particular area because the polls are showing that, or people reporting that the polls there not doing the voting accurately. Like you say, you don't know for sure what's really going on, but I think I told you this when I ran for mayor in my town, which is very liberal and I'm considered conservative. The machines were rigged against me, and I actually voted for somebody else. And then when I tried to get them to open the machines up, they refused to do it until 3 days, and then moved it back to where they park them
Wow.
every 4 years. And but yet, the guy told me at that time, he says, well, this is the last year. This is 2002. This is the last year we're going to use these mechanical machines. He says, you wait till we get the computers in here. He said there'll never be a fair election in the United States again.
Just saw something on one of the news feeds that 88 U.S. generals stand together against Hillary Clinton. 88 U.S. generals.
Right.
Man, if
That's
that doesn't tell you something, something's
it's
wrong.
consolidating into an idea that it's now or never. And that's what it's going to take to change this direction of this country.
Let me ask you something. If you were Donald Trump right this very minute, what would you be doing?
Well, he's probably doing a campaign speech, but that's the amazing thing about this guy is how many speeches he's been making. Even he made Hillary actually get out and do 2 or 3 today, I think.
Yeah.
But at least yesterday. But he's just an amazing human being. And where do you get the energy? I guess he's running on, fumes, but he does, and he does it well, and he moves around. He's got a lot of things going for him. A lot of people thought he was just a puppet for Hillary.
Yep.
Get the nomination, and then he'd back off and screw things up. But he's a winner. He wants to win this election. And I think he'll be disappointed and depressed, but I think he's got what it takes to get mad and say, I'm going to do this the right way, and it's going to take, a situation that we've never seen in this country, and not in everyone living at this point, that people are going to get fed up. I mean, the same forces that at work before the Civil War and the Revolutionary War are at work today. People are fearful for their, future.
Yeah.
They're fearful for their lives. They're fearful of a lot of things, and they want change. And the difference is that these people have the intestinal fortitude like they did back in the old days, because they were much tougher in those days to stand up and fight for what they believe in.
Let's go into January now.
Okay.
Hillary Clinton has won the election. She is sworn in as the President of the United States, the first woman President of the United States, and I believe that this is one of the reasons why she might get in is because she's a woman, not because she's qualified, but because she's a woman. Hey, let's face it. They failed with one social experiment, and that was the election of President Obama. Now they're going to fail with the second social experiment. That's putting a woman into the White House with a pervert of a first. Now, is Bill Clinton going to be a first lady or a first man?
I guess he'd be a first man, but it'll be a change, that's for sure.
Yeah. Under normal circumstances, if the Clintons were above board and they were beyond reproach, wouldn't it be to the country's advantage to have a past president and a new president in the White House at the same time?
Yeah, but that's a big if.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to pull it off because they're totally different people than what we want them to be. You might say that, well, Hillary's not going to throw everybody out and throw the system up in chaos and this, that, and the other because she's establishment and things will continue on. But then again, like I said, we're basically at the end of our ropes. We can't keep borrowing money. Trump said this. He said, if all our roads and bridges and all that were in great repair and this, that, and the other, economy was strong and this, that, and the other, then maybe this huge deficit wouldn't be such a big deal. But we don't have those things either. And the deficit is huge. So, it's one of those situations. Everything's wearing out. We got to replace a lot of stuff, got to spend a lot of money that we don't have, and we got to keep the system going. And we're spending about, 1/3 of what we bring in and just nothing more than debt. And then we got to pay the debt.
Well,
that's huge itself.
Isn't it true that China owns a lot of notes that if they were to call in all the money that was owed to them in the United States, that the United States would be bankrupt?
Well, they could because they're a big enough debtor, but they're not, of the $20 trillion we owe, they're not anywhere close to, 25-30%. But, anybody that could pull it in. And that's what people don't get. They don't really fully understand how the system can implode on itself because a lot of the assets that they value, like, say, a courthouse, for example, might be on the books for $50 million. But what's it really worth if you had to liquidate it? $1 million, $100,000?
Yeah.
So everything collapses. The banks the same way. They don't have the assets they show. They're all, smoke and mirror assets. So this thing can come down faster than you believe, even though we appear to have so much. And then when it collapses, no one gets, money and from the government. They can't pay bills, and then the whole system goes under. it can be devastating, and that's what I think what I was talking about in '98 proved to be true 10 years later in 2008. And Barack Obama even said himself, if we hadn't gone on this deficit spending, we would have lost this baby. And yet people will basically say today, oh, we're too big to fail. We're not too big to fail because a lot of it's nothing more than smoke and mirrors.
Hillary Clinton gets in. What do you think will happen with Russia?
I think Russia's going to decide to go ahead and start their aggressive behavior, and it could escalate into World War III.
What do you think will happen to ISIS?
He's afraid. People forget history, but when Gorbachev stepped down, the globalists put in a leader that was for them, and so that meant Russia was basically in their bandwagon, or on their bandwagon. And then Putin got into power, I think former KGB agent, and he takes over and pushes them out. So he hates the globalist, and he wants to make sure they never get in total control. So that makes him dangerous in that way because he's fearful of the power they have. And the only way to stop that power is to go to war, and that's been happening throughout history.
It's going to be interesting tomorrow. Do you think it's going to be a landslide, or do you think it's going to be a very, very tight race?
I think if the voting machines were fair, and they could be, and let me back up a second.
Sure.
I think they could be for one reason, that the globalists that are running everything that were normally going to cheat this system, because Donald Trump brought it out in the open just like he did with the Republican National Convention, and they've started to realize that, the middle class could rise up against them, and they're only a smaller group of people, that they could be in trouble. So it's like this wrench has been thrown in the works. They might just say, well, let's just let him do it and see what happens and deal with it later, because that's how it works with them. When things go wrong, they just say, well, sooner or later we'll get it back like we want it. And so, that's what I think could happen. I hope happens, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
It's going to be very interesting, my friend. Very interesting. And I just hope and pray that no matter what happens tomorrow night, that cool heads will prevail and that there will not be civil unrest, that the powers to be will use love, compassion, and kindness. Because God forbid, if there is civil unrest, I can see martial law being implemented. I can see the Second Amendment being stripped away. I can see more executive orders being signed than ever signed before. And I can see another tenure of President Obama.
Yeah, that could happen. But on the other side of the coin, if enough people rise up to say, no, enough's enough, that in itself is scary. And it also makes people that normally would go along with the status quo think twice about what they're doing. So I'm not so sure that the military would actually support the government at this point. And that's dangerous. I'm not sure that a lot of policemen would.
So you've got a coup d'etat going on.
Well, if you had, a popular president by the police and by the military, but this is the most unpopular president. He's done everything he can to hurt him in many ways. And so I don't think they'd support him. I really don't. And, they almost love Donald Trump. So this is great dynamics as far as that goes. That's a scenario that would be normal, but these aren't normal times, and you're not dealing with a normal person in Donald Trump.
All right, Richard, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, my friend. Always great talking to you. We'll get you back on the show later on this week so we can do a review of what happens tomorrow night. But quickly,
it would be great to do that.
Let our listeners,
like I say, I think we're in for quite a ride.
So do I, my friend. Let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, where they can get your books.
You can go to brainwashed.com or you can go to amazon.com. That's where they're sold. But there are two great books that tell you basically what's going to happen in the future. And, so far I've been pretty accurate in predicting a lot of this stuff. I even more or less predicted someone like Donald Trump coming along and changing things, and I hope it's for the better.
Richard, you take care of yourself, my friend. Looking forward to speaking to you later on this week. It's going to be one heck of a ride tomorrow night, isn't it?
It will be. And a lot of people will be sitting on pins and needles.
You take care of yourself, my friend, and be safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. Richard DeRose, Exo Nation, www.brainwashedaryou.com. And Richard and I will be back later on this week to do a bit of a preview on what happens tomorrow night. But I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Hey, if you'd like to visit us online, it's very simple, xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And if you'd like to send an email, it is very simple, studio@xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And don't forget, if you're looking for great gifts, one place to go, www.where'smycreditcard.com. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.